We're going to talk about Megabus today. We're also going to talk with author and poet Judy Brecht from Ottumwa. But first, we're going to talk with Professor Richard Wolff about the fiscal cliff. He feels that both Republican and Democratic remedies are just going to send us off that cliff. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. We're going to find out when we come back to kick off the Fallon Forum in just a couple minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey folks, it's Ed Fallon. You know what a big fan I am of local businesses and what a big fan I am of Gateway Market. Gateway keeps its money in the local community and does a lot to support Iowa farmers. This holiday season, give them a shot at catering your event, big or small. They've got pre-cooked entrees, ready-to-go stuff, side dishes, full meal packages, and bakery favorites. Of course, that's also the grocery line they've got there and their wonderful cafe. Check them out online and also at their location at 20th and Woodland in Des Moines' historic Sherman Hill neighborhood.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Well, folks, it's the last week of life on planet Earth before we end it all, according to Mayan prophecies. So enjoy the week while it lasts. It's certainly fine weather here in Des Moines. Compliments of the industrial age. I want to thank Brother Trucker and Andy Fleming for kicking off that providing the bumper music to kick this show off. I want to thank Physicians for Social Responsibility and the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, and I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our program. Got a lot more coming up too, folks, with Mike Alvik with Megabus joining us, and later in the program, Ottumwa resident and author Judy Brecht. But first, I'm delighted to have Richard Wolff on the line with us, I believe, from New York City. Hello, Richard.
Hello, how are you?
Am I correct, New York City?
Yes, downtown Manhattan. That's where I am.
And you were a professor of economics for a long time, half a century perhaps, at University of Massachusetts, correct?
That's right, up in Amherst, Massachusetts.
I went to school not too far from there, just about, 50 miles north at Marlborough College in Vermont.
Absolutely, that's right, in the pretty New England countryside.
Where we used to have real winters. Maybe they still do, but we've kind of forgotten what winter looks like out here.
Well, we have a little of that here also. The signs of warming are a little bit more frightening. We just came through here in New York City a truly catastrophic storm that neither the federal, state, or local governments were prepared for, nor were the local businesses, with the result that they're estimating the damage on the order of 50 or 60 billion with a B.
Yeah, we heard about it out here.
Yes.
So, you've written recently about the fiscal cliff. Some feel, well, it won't be a problem because the world will have ended before the turn of the new year. But realistically, this is something we have to be thinking about, talking about, and the warnings are dire. If we go off the cliff, we're gonna plunge back into recession, and average people who depend on important public resources will be hurt. There are some saying, well, it's the best chance to reduce military spending. $500 billion will be cut out of the military budget if we go off the fiscal cliff. Maybe that's the only way we're going to get to any kind of military spending reduction. There are others who say, for various reasons, that we have to find a way to compromise to make this happen. What is your take on the whole fiscal cliff discussion?
Well, in the interest of time and getting to the core of it, I really think it's an immense distraction for the American people, a kind of carefully cultivated political theater in downtown Washington, so that we don't look at the underlying problems that are really much more severe and much more dangerous for us. Let me explain. We're just finishing the 5th year of an economic crisis. Officially started December 2007, so that makes it a perfect 5 years. This was an economic crisis that was not supposed to happen. We were supposed to have learned from the Great Depression of the 30s how to prevent this, so that didn't work out. When it started happening, first Bush and then Obama assured us it would be short and shallow, and it has turned out instead to be very long and very deep.
Well, aren't these kinds of downturns just par for the course in the kind of economic system we've decided to establish?
Yes, and
we should expect this to happen.
Right. It's precisely because it happens so often, and then periodically happens like a doozy, this one, really hurtful. And let's remember, millions of people without work for years, millions of people thrown out of their homes. These are catastrophes for the families, for the communities in which all of this plays out. The social costs of this are incalculable and last for decades.
Yeah.
So you'd think that all the efforts that have gone in to having regulations, having rules, having institutions, all of which take a lot of our money, our taxpayer money, are supposed to help prevent these sorts of things. It tells you either that all of these regulations and institutions are somehow not doing their job, and I don't think that's true, or it tells you what I do think is true, that we have a system problem. We have a problem with a system that doesn't behave properly, and yet we as a nation are so afraid, and have been for half a century, to question capitalism, to have an honest debate about its strengths and weaknesses and whether we can do better. So what we do is we putter around the edges. And the fiscal cliff is a puttering. It is, first of all, a strange decision by our political leaders not to have resolved this question a year ago.
Well, it was the motive of putting off till tomorrow what you really didn't want to do today.
What they like to call kicking the can down the road.
Kicking the can down the road. But, really, I mean, is it really, if we do, quote, go off the fiscal cliff, is it really that bad? What do you think?
No, I don't think that it's that bad, but it is bad. Is it the end of the world? No. Is this metaphor of going over the cliff overdrawn? Sure it is. That's political, gamesmanship. But there's no question, if in the middle of a 5-year bad recession, which is what we have with no end in sight, if what you do at that point is to raise taxes to any degree on average people, you're going to cut their spending. And if at the same time the government cuts its spending, which it is sure to do with or without the cliff, then that means that there's less goods and services that are going to be purchased by people and by the government. And that means less need for jobs to produce the goods that aren't being bought. And so you're kicking an economy that's already down. There's no way that this is going to be good.
Right.
All it does is pander to the folks who want us to believe that this so-called debt crisis, that is the borrowing of the United States government, is such a terrible problem that it should be solved by taking this sort of step.
Right, I believe we call that austerity in French, German, Spanish, or Italian.
And many other languages,
yes.
And even in English-speaking England, they call it austerity.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, my guest today, this part of the show, is Professor Richard Wolff, a retired professor of economics from the University of Massachusetts. You're welcome to call in at the usual number, 244-0077, 244-0077. And I want to thank Ron Yarnell for helping to get in contact with Professor Wolff and lining him up to be a part of this discussion. And Ron is in the studio with me, taking the place of where my bike would usually, provide this awesome presence and this great counterpoint. Now we're stuck with Ron here in the studio. Ron, did you want to throw any comments out before we move on?
Well, first of all, Professor Wolf, I'm very grateful that you have given us some of your time today. I'm aware that these days you're much in demand. You're become a very popular speaker. In fact, my wife a week ago was telling me she couldn't sleep in the middle of the night, so she went downstairs to watch TV, and she turned on Link TV. I don't know why she thinks that will put her to sleep, because usually that just jazzes her up. And she was watching one of your lectures that Link TV was using as a fundraiser, and she enjoyed that very much, and she enjoys listening to you. And I go, so did you ever get to sleep if you're listening to Professor Wolf in the middle of the night?
Well, that's very sweet of her. Please thank her for the kind words.
Professor, the one question that I wanted to ask, in the middle of this crisis with talk about a fiscal cliff, which I agree is kind of a melodramatic metaphor, you're in constant fellowship with young people, with students. What do you think what's your sense of the rising young generation and their ability to confront the issues of our day?
Well, in a way, it's the $64 billion question. And I still teach in the university. I teach in the New School University here in Manhattan. So I have the benefit of a pretty continuous interaction with at least college-going young people. And I would say to them, first of all, that they either don't know about or fundamentally don't care much about most of what comes out of Washington these days, and certainly most of what's coming out about fiscal cliffs and deficits. For them, they turn mostly a blind or deaf eye, if I can mix my metaphors. Here's their problem. They are terrified, above all things, by the following two risks they face. Number one, having spent a lot of time studying all through the university and schooling, having undertaken record amounts of debt to pay for all that schooling, they are being told by university officials correctly that there aren't jobs, and that even if they're lucky enough to get a decent job, and even if it isn't just a temporary job, the amount of money they're likely to earn, given the debts they already have, mean that the job and income futures they face are very, very much poorer than what they were led to expect by their parents, by their school teachers, by all the adults around them as they were growing up, and they don't know what to do or how to cope with that situation.
Richard, let me ask you this. Well, this is a change of subject here, but one that's very much on people's minds. The fiscal cliff it may be a distraction on a number of levels. Certainly, we should be paying as much or more attention to what just went on in Michigan.
Right.
And in your perspective as an economist, I personally, I can't see, I can't think of a worse thing to happen to working people in this country than to have the state where, of all states, organized labor has been strong. To see the Michigan GOP and the governor accomplish basically what might be, an elimination of the power of labor as a political force in that state. I mean, am I overstating it? Is it that bad?
No, it is. It is every bit that bad. It's a little bit like what I said about the fiscal cliff and all the negotiations between Obama and Boehner and all the others. The bottom line is they're going to raise taxes on average people. Whether or not they also raise taxes more on wealthier or not, the amounts of money involved mean that they're going to have to tax average people more than they did before, and they're cutting spending. If you add to that what happened in Michigan, it's yet another blow to the economy because it allows for the weakening of labor in the United States, which is on a 50-year decline anyway, and thereby removes one of the few forces that system-wide in this country did something to keep levels of wages high enough, not only to take care of Americans in a decent way, but to keep up the purchasing power without which our economy doesn't run.
And what would you say to the proponents of the right-to-work law in Michigan? They say, well, this is just going to create more jobs. Employers will be less hamstrung with concerns about labor unions coming to try to negotiate for things that they don't really deserve. It'll mean better job growth, more employment opportunities. What do you say to those critics?
Well, it's a bizarre form of reasoning. What they're suggesting, those critics, is that as a result of weakening the unions across Michigan and taking away the funds they need to function, something good may happen in the future. But here's what ought to be in their minds, what's going to happen right now. If you have the law in the United States, as we do today, that anything and everything a union ever wins must be given to all the workers at a workplace, whether or not they pay into the union to fund what that union does for them, you're going to get large numbers of workers who are going to choose to get the benefits without making a contribution to the fund that gets them the benefits. And the end result of that will be that the unions, being impoverished, will not be able to deliver the benefits to workers. So that's the one thing we can be sure of. Unions weaker, less benefits, less wages. That's been the history of this country all along for the last 100 years. There's no reason to think that's going to change. Whether in some future time lower wages and poorer benefits bring some employers into the area is a big fat if. And the second point about it is, even if that were to happen, the economic impact will be terrible because we will have lower paid workers, and that's not a boon to the economy as a whole. That's a drag in terms of an economy like ours that depends on the purchasing power of the mass of people.
Professor Wolf, one question I would want to ask you is, I'm sure you're aware of the history of labor, the history of unions. You're probably aware that the United States has the most restricted labor movement, probably in the industrialized West. Is it possible that traditional labor unions, as we've come to become accustomed to them, understand them, do they have much of a value anymore in bringing about a more equitable system? Can they, in any way, shape, or form, lead us out of the predicament we find ourselves?
Well, I think, let me answer it in two parts. First, there's a myth in the United States, carefully cultivated by the likes of the Koch brothers and so on, who were involved in all those things in Michigan over the last few weeks. And the myth is that we still are a country in which unions are very powerful. Here's a little corrective from American history. At their height after World War II, unions never in the United States represented much more than about a third of the private sector workforce. Today in the United States, they represent less than 7%. Now, let's be real clear. In the private sector, the private employees of people working in the United States, which is the vast bulk of our employees, 93% of those workers are not in a union and are not represented by a union.
Now, a few weeks ago, we saw a significant protest movement focused against Walmart surrounding the issue of the way workers there are treated.
Right.
And we've also begun to see some efforts to organize members of workers at Walmart joining unions. And there's some talking, I've heard some talk after the Michigan situation that will be the focus of a lot of labor organizing, is the low-wage retail sector that now employs millions of people, and seems to be ripe for this kind of initiative. What do you think?
Yes, I think it's ripe, and I think again history has a lesson for us. Back in the depths of the Great Depression, the 1930s, we saw the greatest unionization drive in the history of the United States. Nothing like it before, nothing like it since. In a matter of months, millions of Americans who had never joined a union, had never been interested in a union, realized that the situation was grim and that the union represented one of the very few institutions from whom they could expect any kind of help. Could that happen again in this country? Absolutely.
And it better happen again, because there's a different cliff waiting for us. It's a cliff.
That's right.
It's a cliff where we no longer have a middle class, and coupled with that, we have a declining resource base from which we can build, continue to build an economy that can keep America moving forward. That can hopefully provide a better dream to the next generation. We used to always say that, that was the American dream, that the subsequent generation would be better off than their parents. And we run out of that. So, maybe that's the cliff we ought to be paying attention to.
Exactly. That's why I said the other kind is a distraction. We ought to be talking about what we are in, which is the long-term decline of the conditions of work and the conditions of income and the conditions of life of the large majority of our people, whether it's in cities that are collapsing from Detroit to Cleveland to Camden, New Jersey, and on.
But not Des Moines.
Des Moines.
Not Des Moines. No.
Not Des Moines. But you get the picture. We are in a society that has very severe problems, that is talking seriously about cutting back the basic medical insurance that is provided to poor people and to older people. I mean, here we are in a time when we ought to be talking about the basic distribution of wealth and income and how unequal it has become and what that means. That's the cliff that we ought to be worried about, not the details of the dickering about how much tax increases, which is not good for our economy, and how much government spending cuts, which is even worse for our economy. Our quote-unquote leaders are going to figure out as the so-called grand bargain. That's not our problem, and it shouldn't have been the distraction that it has become.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to talk with an economist that talks plain, straight talk, and makes a lot of sense. I appreciate it.
Okay, my pleasure, too, and good luck on your program.
And if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about your work, what's the best thing to do?
Easiest thing, R.D. Wolf with 2 Fs, rdwolf.com. It'll provide you with all the work I do and access to every audio, video, and any other form.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and have a good day.
All right, and Ron, thank you for helping to contact Professor Wolf and send him our direction.
Yeah. It was a good interview.
Yeah. Okay, folks, we'll come back shortly. We're going to talk with Mike Olvik with Megabus. I do want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our program. That's our local grocery store, folks. You want to keep your money local? Again, there's no reason in the world to shop for groceries or anything for that matter at Walmart. You want to send your money down to Bentonville, Arkansas? That's the way to do it. If you want to keep it in town where it supports local farms and other local businesses, Gateway is a great option. Again, located in the Sherman Hill neighborhood. Not only groceries, not only a great cafe, but a catering service at this time of the year might be particularly helpful if you're considering a party, large or small. So check them out, folks. Gateway Market, good food, great community. We'll be back in a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito online, fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Well, hi, I'm Rob Spearman. I'm a broker-owner of RE/MAX Real Estate Concepts in Des Moines, Iowa. Give us a call if you're looking at buying or selling a home, or if you're having trouble on your mortgage payments or looking to purchase foreclosures. We have the agents to help you, experienced, outstanding agents. Our office number is 515-276-2872. Or if you'd like to look at homes, go to our website, homeconnectusa.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, folks. That's Pumptown, Ringgold County's own band, the Hainick Family, and that's their tune, Bicycle. My bicycle is not in the studio today. We've upgraded from bike to bus. With me, not in the studio, but on the line, is Mike Alvik from Megabus. Sounds very ominous. Perhaps sounds a little bit like a fictional character from the Transformers, Megabus. Anyway, if you've never ridden Megabus, folks, it's worth the effort. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my upcoming trip on Megabus, but I want to welcome Mike to the show. Mike, are you there?
Hello, Ed. We're pumped up.
Okay, good.
A good bike tire. We're pumped up.
Well, good. You want good tires when you're out on the highway. So, for years, longest time I can remember, when you thought bus, you thought Greyhound. And maybe locally there was a Jefferson line or there was this Peter Pan line, but when you thought hauling your butt around the country on a bus, it was always Greyhound. And then a few years ago, along comes Megabus, and you seem to be doing pretty well.
I got to tell you, Ed, I've been in the transportation industry, airlines, rail, bus. I've never seen anything as phenomenal as what's happened to us at Megabus. By the way, the actual name of the brand is megabus.com. Just happens to be the same as our URL. And it is amazing how the USA citizen has taken us to their heart. We started in Chicago in April 2006 out on Navy Pier one cool day. And we began our concept of introducing safe, affordable daily express bus services from as low as $1 with free Wi-Fi and power outlets on board. That was a little over 6.5 years ago. Just about 3 weeks ago, we said hello to our 22 millionth customer, and we now serve over 120 cities in the USA. It's been amazing, and we're doing it now. We're operating with state-of-the-art double-decker buses that hold 81 seats each.
Yeah, and I got my first introduction to a double-decker bus when I was 8 years old in Dublin, Ireland, and I thought that was a pretty cool adventure. So when I heard that Megabus was starting its operation and it was going to be these double-decker buses, it was quite a nostalgic moment for me.
Yeah, it must have been. And you actually are not too far away from our parent. Megabus.com is owned by Coach USA here in the USA. Coach USA is now the largest bus company in America, even larger than Greyhound, actually. And Coach USA itself is owned by the Stagecoach Group, which is based in Perth, Scotland.
Ah, okay. All right.
And so it was the owners of Stagecoach that introduced the Megabus brand in Scotland and England, and turned out to be so acceptable. They said, let's bring it to the United States, and that's how we got started here in 2006. We have major hub and spoke systems around the country. Our first one was Chicago, and we serve a number of cities in and out of Chicago. We also have hubs in New York City, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Washington, Toronto. We opened up Atlanta last year, and just this June we opened up a triangular hub in Texas, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. And then this past Wednesday, we just introduced service in California and Nevada. So we are now going to more than 120 cities around the USA with seats from as low as $1.
So beyond the distinction of having double-decker buses and internet access, what distinguishes you from Greyhound?
Well, that's a pretty good that's a pretty good distinction.
Yep, right there.
Greyhound does not have double-decker buses, and they don't offer as many seats as we do per departure. They operate a standard 55-seat coach.
But how about costs? How about your actual your comparable costs?
As we have more seats, we offer more $1 and availability. And by the way, the $1 availability is a question we get a lot from folks. How can you make any money offering?
Yeah,
$1?
that was one of my questions too.
We use the yield management technique similar to what the airlines use, JetBlue, Southwest Air, and so forth, where there are just so many $1 seats at every city we go to around the country, always. This is just not a short-term promotion. When the $1 seats sell out, the fare goes up to the next level, which could be $4. When the $4 seats sell out, it goes to the next level. It could be $8, and so forth. So the longer you wait to book your trip, if you book one day before you're ready to go, you might pay the highest fare. But the highest fare is still going to be cheaper than any other bus company. It'll be on most of the time on express buses. You won't have to make 7 or 8 stops between them. That's another way that we're differentiated from some of the other bus companies.
Okay, so how do you manage to offer rates that are lower than Greyhound and other companies while still giving away some seats at $1 or $4? How does that work out?
98% of our bookings are we're an internet-based company, almost 100%. The Greyhound is not. We don't have any brick and mortar offices. We have no bus terminals. We are city center to city center. We pull in. You show your confirmation number, just like on an airline. Some people just hold up their iPhone, show us the confirmation number, and they board. And so by keeping our costs down in that way and by carrying more customers per trip, it's a more efficient way to operate. And if we get volume, that's the name of the game, Ed. If we get enough people on our buses and we get the right fare mix, because you might be sitting next to somebody who paid $1, but next to them, somebody's going to be sitting next to them paid $15. So if we get the right mix, we're able to cover our costs and earn a profit. And so far, so good.
Yeah, and so your occupancy has been adequate to sustain growth and.
It has, not only to sustain growth, but to provide a profit. Now, not every single route is profitable at this point. It takes a number of months to gain that kind of traction. When you go into new markets, it doesn't just happen overnight. So a number of our more mature routes are really doing quite well. A number of the newer routes, of course, we're just starting to build our constituency among Americans.
And in terms of profitability, how's the Chicago to Omaha route?
Rocking and rolling.
Good, all right.
We're doing pretty well. From Des Moines, we go to Chicago, Iowa City, and Omaha, Nebraska. For a while, Omaha was the farthest west we were going, and now we're out in California and Nevada. So, Omaha's doing very well.
I think a lot of folks in Iowa don't realize that Megabus goes beyond Chicago because you can't really buy a ticket from Des Moines beyond Chicago. You've got to buy one to Chicago and then a separate ticket from Chicago to wherever else you're going next.
And, that's an interesting observation. That's totally true. And what's happening is our customers are pretty creative, Most of all the services we showed on our website, megabus.com, were point-to-point. You got on in Des Moines, you got off at Chicago. But they were making their own connections because they saw the value of these very affordable fares, so they were connecting in cities to go to other places. As we started to see that develop and as they started to talk to us about that some more, we said we ought to list on our website what we call approved connections, because what our customers were doing, were making the connections but not allowing enough time for the connection. So God forbid your bus got there and you missed your connection, then you'd have to wait for the next one. So we now have approved connections on a number of our city pairs, on the popular ones that are being requested by customers.
Right. Yeah, because I'm going to be going to Chicago and then down to Memphis, Atlanta, and Jacksonville, Florida for Christmas with my kids.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it takes. I mean, it's. I'm intentionally taking my time because I just want little bites. Ride during the day, get off and sleep somewhere at night without having to worry about trying to cram yourself into a seat. And I don't know. Do you have many people who do ride overnight trips?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
We have some trips that are longer. I mean, Chicago to St. Louis or Kansas City or New York City to Toronto. I mean, those are longer trips. So a number of them, they prefer overnight. As a matter of fact, I got back from Las Vegas yesterday because I was in Las Vegas, as were our other managers, greeting people who were starting our service on Wednesday. On Wednesdays when we began. And we leave Las Vegas at 30 minutes after midnight. One of our departures, 30 minutes after midnight. Don't you believe there were customers there to get on that bus because they'd rather just sleep and relax on the bus. And when they get to the destination, they're refreshed and off they go to either meet their family or do whatever they were going to do.
My problem is I don't sleep well on moving objects. Buses, planes.
Yeah, I don't either.
Not really, doesn't work really well for me.
But see, having the free Wi-Fi makes it possible for you can entertain yourself, communicate with people, or whatever. I mean, if you're in the evening, you could use the Wi-Fi any way you like to occupy the time. It's like being on JetBlue with those little TVs in the back of the screen, on the back of the seats. You know, there was somebody once said to me, you were talking about doing it a little at a time. They said it's a cinch by the inch, it's hard by the yard, and I sure agree with that. So you're doing it the right way.
So now the internet connection, the free Wi-Fi that comes with the bus. I have heard some people complain that it is intermittent, that it doesn't work all the time. Have there been kinks in that system? Are those being worked out, or what's the status of that?
That was a legitimate comment. I'd say the first 2 years we were operating because we were learning as we grew. And we were also finding out that a lot of people were downloading large files, so that ate up a lot of the bandwidth. And so sure enough, you didn't get, always the greatest reception. We changed all of that 2 years ago. So now the Wi-Fi on our buses is significantly improved, and you won't find quite that same issue. I mean, once in a while, if you're going into deep valleys or into mountains or areas like that, you might find it a little different. But nowadays, it's pretty reliable. Also, there are a number of people asking us that our buses, by the way, double-deckers, these are state-of-the-art buses. They come from Brussels, and they hold 81 seats. They have 2 decks. Down below, as you probably know, there's a table between some of the seats, so you could, if you have family or friends or whatever, you put a laptop on a table. It's almost like being on an airplane, in some cases even better. And they're all green certified. The buses burn very low sulfur fuel, and some of the buses have particulate filters that reduce the amount of carbon in the air. And 51% of those people, those 22 million customers, have told us they used to travel by car. That's our biggest competitor, not another bus company.
Really?
The car, yeah.
The car.
So if we're taking that many people off the road, we're reducing congestion and reducing use of fossil fuel.
Exactly.
I'm proud of that. Yeah.
That's when I looked at the comparative carbon footprint of flying, taking the train, bus, driving to Florida. Actually, Mike, the best carbon footprint was cramming a Prius full of every seat, four people in a Prius. That was the best. I was surprised. But bus was.
I bet you were a close second.
Well, yeah, bus was a close second, and I was surprised actually that bus beat train, and other people have been surprised at that too. But it's true.
We do. But one of the reasons is trains tend to make a lot of stops. And in some cases, their fares are higher than ours. Yeah. But to compete with the car is interesting because we're starting to get – our customers are made up of this kind of a breakdown. Of all those customers, 40% of them are young adults, men and women, about 50% split, and college students between 18 and 39 years old. After that, we get a lot of women traveling on Megabus. They travel together, 3-4 gals, spending a weekend somewhere or a day trip to either go shopping, attend an event, or you go to a great restaurant. They like it as a social experience because it's very affordable. The buses are clean. They like the clean bathrooms and so forth. After women traveling together, we're getting a lot of seniors on our bus. And they love the affordability of it, the fact that it's clean and comfortable, and you're getting more for less money, which is always something attractive.
Well, I have one last question for you, Mike. When I go to get on Megabus on Sunday morning, am I going to be tased by? Am I going to be frisked down by a TSA agent?
No, but you're going to be looked over by the bus driver.
Okay.
And of course, we're always concerned about safety. But you can put 50 pounds of bags on the bus, and we're not going to charge you for it. And you don't have to take off your shoes, Ed.
All right. Well, good. I'm glad to know that. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to my trip, and when I'm done with it, I'd like to have you back on the show to share with you some of my experiences and talk a little bit more. Because I support your business, but I also support the idea of getting more and more people to find ways to move around this country that doesn't involve burning so much fuel.
We are a major factor there, I believe, in our industry. And we are, what people are telling us is we're the new normal. We're the new normal in bus transportation. And one last thing, Ed, we just announced that if you're traveling between January 9th and February 24th, we're giving away 200,000 free seats to encourage people to try Megabus. So check out the website, put in the promo code TRY Megabus, T-R-Y Megabus. And you might be able to travel free from January 19th to February 24th. If you're a Facebook fan, you'll always be notified of this kind of thing up front. So becoming a Facebook fan is something to think about.
Good to know. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure to talk to all your listeners. Welcome you on board.
All right. Thank you. Folks, I want to thank Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of our program. Fighting Burrito is located at 13th and Locust in downtown Des Moines. Also in Ames, of course. But hey, here in Des Moines, great to have Fighting Burrito providing lunch and dinner options. Again, this is a custom burrito place. You go in and you have a wide selection of options, and you can make your own burrito. It's a great environment, lots of light, lots of, they have internet access as well. And I highly recommend you check them out and thank the owner, Matthew Goodman, for doing his part to support the alternative to right-wing radio. We are going to hear from Jody Bresch when we come back. I also want to talk a little bit about my taped interview with Iowa Public TV this morning with others in preparation for the upcoming Iowa Press. The question was, what is the future of the Democratic Party? And I was on the set with Brad Anderson, the former campaign director of the Obama campaign, and also Sue Dvorsky. So that was an interesting conversation. I want to talk a little bit about that and also remind folks about the upcoming comedy show to keep me out of the big house. This is the Lawsuits Are No Laughing Matter comedy show with Lee Camp. Lee's got a very short but very crisp video he just released on Afghanistan. I want to share that with you as well. We'll be back in a few minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
Hi, folks. It's Ed Fallon here. Proof Restaurant at 13th and Locust. You've probably been there for their award-winning, nationally recognized lunch specials. And here's where the chefs really get creative. Let me tell you, they're like artists, okay? I've been there, and it is one of the best meals I have had in Des Moines. I've heard that from other people. You got to check it out. Proof for supper. Do not assume you can get in. Make reservations. Contact Proof Restaurant online at proofrestaurant.com or 244-0655. That's 244-0655.
Ludwig van Beethoven here. I used to be so tired all the time, not from composing and playing, but from moving my piano. But now I feel so much better. I call S&P Piano, and they will bring my piano anywhere. They also sell and rent pianos, used ones, new ones. You get the idea.
Call S&P Piano right away at 208-6453. That's 208-6453.
S&P Piano.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruitcake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Once I had a secret love that lived within this heart of mine. All too soon, my secret love.
What a sweet voice. That's Max Wellman, folks. And if you have not yet been to Max Wellman's Home for the Holidays concert series, you should. And if you are quick, you might win 2 tickets. I'm going to put a couple tickets up for grabs on my Facebook or website. I haven't decided yet, and that just makes it even funner, more mysterious. So somewhere later today on my website or Facebook page, there will be 2 free tickets to the Max Wellman Home for the Holidays concert. I want to thank Reynolds Energy Solutions for sponsoring this segment of our show. I want to talk a little bit later in the show about my interview with in preparation for Iowa Press, and I want to talk about the whole question of what the fate and future of the Democratic Party looks like. We'll make that a quick conversation with probably more time spent on it on future shows. I also want to talk about Lee Camp coming to visit in January and share his latest video on Afghanistan. But in the studio with me, Judy Bresch from Ottumwa, somebody I got to know years ago when I was romping around the state campaigning. Judy is an author and a poet and looks pretty sharp with a headset on. Judy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I think I met you 8 years ago at the State Democratic Convention when you were running for president and I was drumming up some business.
I hope I wasn't running for president. That would have been really dumb.
That wasn't you, huh? Anyway, I was drumming up business for the Iowa Army Ammunition Plant in Middletown, Iowa.
Over by Burlington.
Trying to get a plank on the platform that year for the plant. And I was very successful.
I remember that. Because there have been some significant problems at that facility.
And there continue to be. And maybe sometime we could talk about that because I would love to have an opportunity to discuss what's going on there. Yeah. But of course, today I'm here about my books. I'm very, very excited to be a published author on the broader national and international scale. I have self-published books in our community over the years. I'm not new to the project or the process. However, I've never had anything available through Amazon.com or Kindle electronic books, and right this minute I do.
As long as you're also trying to sell them at locally owned bookstores like The Bookstore and Beaverdale Books. And have you got a locally owned bookstore in Ottumwa?
We do have. We have 2. They're both small businesses right this minute, but they are supportive. As a matter of fact, not only do you have a problem with what it takes to actually write a book, after you write the book, you have to promote the book.
I know. and that's where I come in.
And definitely that's where you come
in.
So
what is this latest book focused on? What's it about?
Exanthia was basically, in the beginning, 3 short stories. My 4 sons were going to school and bringing home their free writing journals empty. And I was very concerned about that. I was thinking, all these kids are literate. They all know how to spell, so they should be able to write something. And so they were saying, I don't have anything interesting in my life going on, Mom. Everything I do is boring. And I thought, no, it isn't. But let me show them why it isn't.
Right, good.
So that's how the first 3 chapters of the children's book, Exanthia, happened to come about. It's me taking episodes from their everyday experiences and turning them into a child's adventure.
So I imagine marketing a children's book is a little different than marketing a book geared toward an adult audience.
Right. And one of the problems for writers, in my opinion, is that we get pigeonholed in one specific genre, and then somebody thinks that that's all we can write. And I hope to dispel that idea for everybody. Yes, I've written a children's book. Yes, I've written an adult poetry book. I'm also working on a romance novel. I mean,
all right.
I don't want to get pigeonholed. I've spent the last 6 months writing about the Democratic campaign and the political campaign here in Iowa for Yahoo Voices and Yahoo News.
So that's been an ongoing news reporting assignment, essentially.
I've been doing that in the neighborhood of the last 12 months, right? So I'm thrilling.
And that has mercifully come to an end.
Right, it has,
Okay.
definitely. That doesn't mean something else may not come up. But for right this minute, the campaign is done. And so it gives me an opportunity to pursue other things that I'm really interested in doing. So Exanthia wound up, after that 3 short stories, becoming an inspiration for a whole book, a whole children's book. I decided to look around for some plots or storylines that could tie in with the 1993 flood, because that was the time period.
Yeah, that hit you pretty
set
hard
in.
too, didn't it, down in Ottumwa?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I think only Des Moines got hit harder than we did.
Yeah. Well,
we were at risk,
we're
too,
honored.
of
We're honored.
losing our water and our sewer. But Des Moines actually did lose
We
it.
did. For 3 weeks.
For quite a lengthy time. But the story includes a homeless man. And at the time, in the winter of 1992 and 93, it really came to public attention in the state of Iowa that we were dealing with homeless, not just nationwide, but we were dealing with them in our own local communities. I was a student at William Penn University at the time, and our teaching students were actually taking buses and coming up to homeless communities in Des Moines and tutoring children living in homeless communities. I mean, it was that big of an event at that time.
Right.
So it was a natural evolution for one of the characters in my book to become a homeless man. But one of the other interesting things that a lot of people don't know was that we were part of a process called the orphan trains around the turn of the century, 100 years ago. And what orphan trains were is children who didn't fit anywhere else in places like New York and Chicago were put on trains, and they were sent to the Midwest. And that then flyers were posted saying there would be children available at the next train stop. And literally, these children were bartered off to community members along the orphan train.
When you say bartered, you mean like sold?
Not necessarily sold, but given away. And in a way, promoting their being given was kind of a type of barter, because they were subjected to, this is a strong, husky boy who can help you with the farm, do chores, help you milk the cows, that kind of thing. So a lot of these children didn't wind up in the best situations in the world.
They were kind of, can we just say slaves?
Basically, some of them did. Now, some of them were adopted into wonderful, loving homes and treated like members of those families.
But there wasn't a really good system in place to check and balance that.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely
so you write
not.
about that?
That is part of the storyline in the book Exanthia. Yes, it is. And I just want to say, without giving too much of the plot away, that the end of it has a very interesting twist that is connected to the homeless man and the story about the orphan trains.
All right.
That's all I want to share about that.
Okay, now if people want to learn more about your work, or they want to purchase your book, what do they do?
I have a website, Amazon.com, but if you want to purchase one of my books, they're available through Amazon.com. Just type in my name, Jody Breisch, in the search engine.
Jody, Jody, and then Bresch.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. And electronically, I'm learning as I go about this too, but I mean, that's where you get your financial deal when you purchase the book. I think Autumn's Child is like $2.99 for an electronic book. Exanthia is like $3.99 for an electronic book.
You mean a Kindle?
A Kindle,
okay,
exactly. Yeah. And if you were to purchase a paperback, Autumn's Child, it's an 8x10 colored book with colored photographs in it. We're talking $14.99. So I mean, the difference of $2.99
That's
and
still a good deal,
$14.99.
given all the work that goes into it and all the trees that must die horrible deaths in order to be printed
It
upon.
is a good deal.
Yeah.
And I love to hear from anybody who has read my book. So if you support Iowa writers and you pick up a copy of Autumn's Child or Xanthia, get in touch with me through my website because I can be contacted that way, and I will do my best to respond. Autumn's Child has at least 3 political poems in it. Most people don't think of poets as being politically inclined, but I possibly on down the road could actually put a collection of poetry.
Well, the Czech Republic,
together.
the Czech Republic elected Václav Havel as a noted poet as the first president of that country. So maybe there is. But hey, I want to run on before we run out of time. There's a couple other things I want to share with folks. Jody, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Lee Camp is coming to Des Moines on January 13th. He's doing a fundraiser to help me in my legal expenses against the suit by Leonard Boswell, which I'm surprised has not been dropped. But Lee's latest video, filmed in I think Union Square in New York City, just 1 minute 19 seconds long, and says volumes about why we should not be in Afghanistan.
We got no plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Follow like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending. We got no plans.
Afghanistan? Why are we still in Afghanistan? It came out 3 years ago that the United States is funding both sides of the war in Afghanistan. We're paying the Taliban millions to let our trucks through so that we can fight the Taliban. We're losing a game of solitaire. I mean, this is like, you know what this is like? This is like your uncle, your crazy uncle who would come up to you when you were 7 years old and he'd take your hand and start smacking you in your own face, going, stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself. That's Afghanistan, all right? Except there's no uncle. It's just us pounding ourselves in the face and wondering why we can't win. No wonder a scrappy group of insurgents in torn clothes and sandals are able to compete with the most powerful military in the world. They have us on their side. They have us on their side.
No plans at all. Evil man's always transcending.
Wow. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to having Lee Camp in Des Moines, and I hope folks will come on down to the House of Bricks on January 13th. It's a Sunday, 7 to 9 p.m. Again, not just Lee, we'll have some local comic talent as well, and Andy Fleming will be joining us. I also want to encourage people to watch, well, you should always watch Iowa Press. It's a good show. But I'm going to be on this week. I'm going to be on the Iowa Press that airs on Friday night, 7:30 p.m., and again on Sunday at noon. Now, this was a conversation with leading Democratic officials, Sue Dvorsky and Brad Anderson, about the future and fate of the Democratic Party. And my feeling is the Democratic Party's future in the short term looks very good because the Republican Party is so extreme. You've got a coalition of hardcore theocrats who want to just impose their view of the Bible on everyone else, coupled with this very, very thin sliver of the ultra-wealthy corporate interests that, like the Koch brothers and others, who only want to see government serve their purposes. So that's the Republican Party. It's really not hard to compete against that, okay? It's a very scary, dangerous agenda. The Republican Party wants to dig the hole deeper. My concern with the Democratic Party, it seems to be content to represent the status quo. We don't need a status quo party. We need a party that is going to fight for true progressive reform on so many issues that aren't being addressed. And I know that rank and file Democratic Party members will, tell me the things that Obama has done, tell me the things that the state legislature has done under Democratic control, and I say, well, but the biggest issues aren't being addressed. We are still in the process of building a pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline, that would further send us down a road toward global warming that I don't think we're going to come back from. When we see here in the state, when we had Democratic control over 4 years, only one pro-labor bill was passed out of the House and Senate and vetoed by the governor. And President Obama, digging us deeper into the war in Afghanistan, supporting reauthorization of the Patriot Act, of other initiatives that are eroding our civil liberties. not closing Guantanamo Bay. I mean, in so many ways, we're seeing a lack of will on the part of the Democratic Party to address the issues that need to be addressed. And so my feeling is, short term, Democratic Party will be doing okay because the Republican Party is so out there. But in the long haul, the Democrats have to either find a way to begin to really move us forward on the key issues. And again, I think that's why so many people were excited in 2008 that have lost excitement now. They have not seen the kind of delivery on the promise that we thought Barack Obama embodied. And again, we've seen that here at the state level. Democrats held the Iowa legislature for only 4 years. First time in 40 years. And they hold it for 4 years and nothing gets done. Very little gets done. Okay? That's not going to be a party that's going to really move forward in the future because it's got to do a better job at relating to the concerns that people are dealing with in their daily lives. And I think the big problem is this: money. It used to be the Democratic candidates would get elected on shoe leather, and now they reach for a different kind of leather in their back pocket, and they pull out big checks from lobbyists and corporate interests that don't have the public's interest in mind. And then you do that when you get elected, you're inclined by human nature to represent those interests. That has to change. And we need to have more conversation about this because it's not just enough to complain about it. We've got to find solutions to deal with the problem. That has become a Democratic Party, again, that is the party of the status quo and not the true party of progress, reform, and change. More on that down the road. Speaking of down the road, I'm there, folks. I'm going to be gone next week. We'll have a great lineup of guest hosts for you. And again, I'll be getting out a message about what those conversations are going to be. If you'd like to be on my email list, I send out one a week on Mondays. It's available on my website, fallonforum.com. You can click on subscribe, and I will keep you posted as to what's going to be coming down the pike on this program. I want to thank Webcast One Live for hosting the studio for this show. I want to thank my producer, Maddie Arrington. I want to remind you to stay tuned for Bradshaw. He'll be with you at 1:30. And I want to say, since if I don't talk to you before then, Merry Christmas, folks.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager.
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with 100% money back.